Hello, I'm Sheila Schroeder, and I lead business development for Private Ocean Wealth Management. I'm here with Steve Branton, one of our lead advisors and a partner in our firm. Recently, Steve and I were speaking with McDowell Cotter partners Brett Lytle and Stephanie Coggins about how we manage cash needs during crisis and as an ongoing part of any client's portfolio. Steve, I think it's fairly common for investors to want to go to a safe place during a financial storm. And for many, that means selling stock and building up cash. Yet we know that this often means that investors are selling as the market bottoms and then they miss out as the market recovers. Could you walk us through how you think about cash and just how much an investor needs to keep in their portfolio?
Yeah, absolutely, Sheila. But first of all, I think before we jump into the five considerations that we have when we think about cash needs for clients, I think it's important to say it's completely normal for investors to want to go to cash or leave the market in the first place. I mean, there's been 25 days where the market has moved 3% in either direction just this year. And with this overwhelming amount of bad economic and financial news, it's enough to trigger the loss aversion and even the riskiest investor. And so it's completely normal for clients to be calling their advisors and saying, should I go to cash or not? But because the long-term risks of being out of the market are so significant, and really market timing when you leave the market, timing when you get back in, because those risks are so significant, we want to slow our clients down and get them to think it through before they make that decision. Just one data point that we've experienced and found is the impact of missing out on the days of highest market performance can have a permanent impact on client outcomes. Our research shows just missing out on the top 25 days over the last 30 years and your return drops by about 50%. So kind of to go back to your original point, Sheila, cash has a really important role in any portfolio. And so as an advisor, I want to consider five key questions when I build a portfolio. And so even when a client wants to go to cash because of market conditions, we ask them to slow it down and let's think this through from sort of a more comprehensive perspective. And so the first question is, how much cash should be kept on hand? So we typically start off with how many months of expenses does the individual client need to and want to retain? And there's a couple of considerations, and they'll be different for each person. But the starting point is what are your monthly fixed living expenses? And if you're a working person, often the way that we'll get to that number is how many months do you think it would take you to find another job? If you're a retired person, how much do you typically withdraw from your portfolio on a monthly basis? Also factoring into this is your risk perspective. Someone that's more aggressive might be comfortable with just, if they think it'll take 3 months to find another job, then 3 months is all they really need. But if they're maybe a more conservative investor, then maybe it's 6 months or 9 months or a year in some cases. In addition to just considering your relative risk perspective and comfort level with the amount of cash on hand, we also ask our clients to consider the opportunity cost of having money out of the market. And if they're going to keep large amounts of money out of the market, to look for high yield savings accounts. There's a lot of those available right now. And of course, always watch out for FDIC limits.
Thank you. So what I'm hearing is it's so easy to think that cash is a safe place, that's where you should go first. But what I'm hearing you say is that the starting point is really making sure that you have the right number of months of living expenses set aside based on what your needs are. And that it's not always having more cash is better. So what's the next thing that one should consider?
Yeah, so beyond the living expenses, then we ask our clients, is there any other major expense coming over the time period that you're trying to essentially have a prudent reserve for that needs to be addressed from a cash perspective? So in addition to this prudent reserve that we've just described, what other one-time expenses are being contemplated? Those can include anything such as a wedding, home repair or renovation to your home, purchase of a car, or any other major expense. And so an example would be, if you're a working person and you think it'll take 6 months to find a job, and you think that 6 months you're a balanced investor, and from a risk perspective, you think 6 months feels about right, but you know that next year or in the next 6 months that you're going to need to do a major renovation to your home that's going to cost another 50,000, then our recommendation would be to have 6 months of living expenses plus an additional 50,000.
Well, to your point, these are all expenses that can be anticipated. Most people don't get married within, a couple weeks. They usually plan them quite a bit ahead of time. Same with cars. From here, what do you think about next?
So yeah, once we have this sort of runway of cash for living expenses, and for known major one-time expenses that are coming, then we ask our clients. In some cases, our clients still say, "I still want to go to cash. I have this cash set aside. I still want to go to cash." And so then we say, we actually ask them to stop and say, "Has your financial plan changed?" In other words, because of coronavirus, do you envision making major changes to your financial plan? And by financial plan, we mean things like the date, roughly the rough date of your retirement, how much you plan to spend in retirement, your income prospects until retirement, or expenses in retirement, such as healthcare costs, vacation costs, charitable giving. Has anything about your core financial plan changed? And what we found is most clients have said, well, no, I still hope I can retire at the same time. I still plan to spend the same amount. And I think, in the short term, there might be some issues with income, but I think that um, I can reasonably expect to make the same amount of income as we previously contemplated between now and retirement.
So essentially, even in the face of crisis, often there's no impact on you as an individual. And if you have the cash, there's no change to your financial plan, and it seems like your life can continue as planned. Everything seems like, it should work. But what if I still want to go to cash?
Well, and that does happen. So even when we've checked all these other areas of a person's life, and they still just feel like they want to go to cash, then it's time to really talk about risk in general and their risk tolerance. Are they a conservative investor, a moderate investor, an aggressive investor? And because of this pandemic, has their risk tolerance in relation to the markets, has it permanently changed forever? And invariably, when we ask clients that, they'll pause and they've said, well, no, I don't think that because of one pandemic that my risk tolerance has changed forever.
So if my investment philosophy hasn't changed, should I do nothing?
Well, we do think that the final question that we might ask clients, and it is around beyond even risk tolerance. And if the client says that no, my risk tolerance really hasn't changed, has your investment philosophy in general changed? And by that I mean, we know as part of the business cycle, there will be periods of expansion and periods of contraction in the economy, and as a result of those will impact markets. And so that's the thing that we'll ask clients is part of the last step is, do you believe fundamentally, has the pandemic fundamentally changed the way that you view the business cycle and also the market's relationship to the business cycle? And invariably, clients again say, no, I don't think this pandemic has permanently altered the business cycle, the relationship of markets to the business cycle, and my general investment perspective.
So what I'm hearing you say is that even in the face of a major market correction, the first question is always going to be what's changed. And for all of our clients in an ongoing engagement, it's a question we ask each time we connect with them and plan for accordingly in advance. It certainly raises my sleep at night factor to know that if we do need to pivot, there are a number of levers that can be considered, and that during a downturn, there are strategies such as tax loss harvesting and rebalancing that can actually take advantage of market declines. Steve, thank you for taking the time to help us better understand the question, should I go to cash? For any of you who are watching this today, if you have more questions, please feel free to reach out to us at privateocean.com. Thank you and be well.